Welcome back, everybody. Today I want to direct all my sardonic ire on one class of people in the United States, and that's the soybean farmer. These beige bean bandits have been all over my TikTok feed. It's time for me to address them. From one good old boy to another. That's what we're going to do. 5 reasons why soybean farms are collapsing right now, and how it is just the fault of the farmers at this point. Let's talk about it.
Awful discouraging. You know, we do our very best to grow a good crop to feed the world, and then we can't hardly give it away.
Bachmann blames President Trump for the soybean crisis, even though he voted for him. He says new tariffs are forcing China to buy soybeans from Argentina and Brazil. Now many Iowa farmers face selling this year's crop at a huge loss.
The way things are, there won't be a farmer left in 5 years if things don't change, because our expenses are so high and the crop is worth less than it was 30 years ago.
Right now, we're in a very dire situation. September's upon us, harvest is starting in the deep south, and we have 0 bushels of soybeans on the books to be sold to China for this current crop that's about to come out of the field. Historically, over the last 5 years, about a third of soybean sales to China would be booked. China amounts to 25% of our total U.S. soybean crop. So that would be 8 or 9% of the whole U.S. crop would normally be on the books with China right now, and we have 0. That is alarming. The farm economy as a whole is struggling. Inflation has caused our cost of production to rise drastically on every front. Commodity prices, in particular soybeans, are down about 50% from where they were 3 years ago. And our numbers are deeply in the red. And we send this letter to President Trump because we've been talking for months about needing to have sales in place, a deal in place, a phase 2 type agreement that has purchase commitments along with a level playing field on trade with no tariffs. And we haven't had anything happen, unfortunately. And our appeal to President Trump and his administration is make soybeans a priority in any trade negotiations that are taking place. Soybeans are the #1 agriculture export to China. And in the last trade war, it was 71% of the losses that we had as American farmers. And they're critical.
You see these people crying on TV, right? Their little trucks, their red hats, and lots of khakis. And they're going to blame everybody, right? They're going to blame Biden. They're going to blame China. They're going to blame anybody who's eating a vegan patty in America. But let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. As a connoisseur of disaster and a lifelong resident of reality, let me just say, this is their own fault. They brought this on themselves. This is like watching a train wreck, right? Where the conductor is the guy who laid the tracks, right? He built the engine, and he spent the whole ride high-fiving himself while being blindfolded. So let's do it. Let's dive into 5 reasons why these people should go ahead, quit their job, start investing in a new career, maybe teaching a masterclass online about failure. Reason number 1, the all eggs in one basket strategy. You guys had one job when it comes to farming, and that's to diversify. But instead you decided to feed the whole world with soy. You were like, you know what the world needs? More soy, just mountains of it. And China became your only buyer. You're one buyer. You're like the one guy who does jokes about Nickelback at a party. It's all he got, and he thinks that everyone should laugh all the time. Did you think for 1 second that that might be a mistake? Did you think for 1 second that there might be competitors out there, like, I don't know, Brazil, who's willing to tear down the entire rainforest just so they can undercut you by 3 cents? The second a little trade spat happens, you're watching that your entire house of cards start to collapse, because that's not a market strategy, right? That's just a wish and a prayer. And not just that, but it's a whole lot of government subsidized money, which we all know is your favorite. Number 2, you're growing a product that in America is primarily used to feed cows. Then we eat the cows, right? It's a logistical nightmare. And the other part, tofu, right? No one loves tofu. Listen, I've had times in my life where I try to be vegan for a couple months. It's just not something that I want to allow in my repertoire. Tofu is not exactly a bad thing, but it's one of the last things that any American really has a palate for. Right? It's not something that we enjoy. It's not something that we're going to go out of our way to go buy. Right? Of course, you have people out there who love tofu, and they're called Asian immigrants. But the market for it in America is just ridiculously small, right? So other than growing feed, you're growing it for export. That's it. But meanwhile, what are people actually buying? Avocados, right? Pre-shredded kale, artisanal honey, things that look fantastic on Instagram, right? Beige colored soybeans, not so much. And you're selling a yellow bean that makes people gassy, and you're surprised when the profit margin is going to be as slim as a supermodel who's on a cleanse, right? It's called supply and demand, right? And everyone's demanding something else, right? They're going to starve you out, as they should. Number 3, the politics of blind devotion. And this is my favorite one, and here's the fun one, right? It's the cognitive dissonance. The farmers, bless their hearts, they're the most reliable, red meat eating, flag waving voter bloc that one could possibly ask for. They love the guy who said trade wars are good and they're easy to win. They cheered for a guy who called trade deals stupid and the worst deal ever. And wouldn't you know it, once that trade war went ahead and started, what happened? You would have thought that once the smoldering ruins of their bank account starting to show that they're going to have to go into bankruptcy, and they know that it's a consequence of the tariffs and all the collapsed deals that happened with their one trading partner, China, you would have thought that they would have held the one guy accountable who actually started all that nonsense and told them that, hey, it was a good thing. It was going to help them out, right? Business is going to be better than ever. But no, what did they do? They doubled down. They doubled down more than ever and started supporting this guy even harder. There is no better example of enabling your own abuser quite like this right here. They took a political identity that was essentially anti-global trade, and were stunned when global trade turned around and bit them in their collective subsidized ass. They were cheering on, honestly, they were cheering on the arsonist who was burning their farm, right? Who was burning their barn down. And honestly, it's just beautiful to watch. It's beautiful to watch. It's tragic, and it's going to cause America, our agricultural sector, in our economy to take a nosedive, but it's beautiful to watch nonetheless. Number 2, subsidies are a drug and the American farmer is addicted. Let's talk about the hard stuff here, subsidies, right? These guys aren't running a farm. They're running a government-funded welfare project with tractors, right? They got used to the government stepping in anytime they sneeze, right? Bad weather, subsidies. Low prices, subsidies. Whilst your biggest customer to a global trade spat of your own making, right? Billion-dollar bailouts. The subsidies created a culture of zero innovation. That's why when you drive through small towns throughout America, they're all the same businesses from the 70s or 80s. Why change, right? There's no need for it. Why diversify? Why come with new innovative methods that are going to make harvests bigger? Increase a diversity and plurality of products that you can sell in case one goes down. Why do anything hard with Uncle Sam sitting there with a wheelbarrow full of money? This thing, they're addicted to the easy cash. Soybean farmers, they love it, right? It's a cash crop. The American government's been getting a huge cut off of this. But when the music stops, or in this case, when the checks get smaller, right, panic ensued. They confuse government assistance with business acumen. And it's a classic American tragedy. Really it is. Reason number 1, they never said no to the landlord. You want the real, unvarnished truth of the matter? It's greed. It's always greed. Look at these fields. They're massive. They keep getting bigger because that was the mantra for a long time, right? Get big or get out. They kept buying more land. They kept taking out bigger loans. It was just soy, 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 soy. They monocultured themselves into a corner. They destroyed the soil. They brought in the biggest machinery known to man. And they put every penny into a system that was only profitable if you were the sole supplier to a starving world. And they did all this on the promise of a globalized, unbroken trade system. The minute the system got a tiny crack and their one buyer, China, backed out and started looking abroad for other providers, the whole thing collapsed, or is collapsing, right? It wasn't the weather, it wasn't the Democrats, it wasn't the media, it was the arrogance of scale and the hubris of a subsidy check. They bet their entire check on an unsustainable system. And when the bill came due, they looked around for someone else to pay this. And I say this, soybean farmers, from the bottom of my heart, right? I hope you choke on it. I do. I hope you choke on it. You've been dependent on a dying system for a long time. You failed to actually change, only to grow and be more entrenched in a monoculture system that was doomed to fail. An explosion of soybeans and corn that we don't even eat in this country isn't good for anybody, right? It's good for the farmers, it's good for the government, but it's not actually good it doesn't actually serve a purpose for everyone else. You want to talk about gas? Yeah, fine, whatever. But last time I heard, it was drill baby drill, we have gas. We don't need ethanol, we don't need clean energies. We can just dig up more dinosaurs out of the ground. The truth of the situation is the chickens have come home to roost. Really, that's all it is. Right? This is the consequence of generations of continuing the same thing just to make money in a system where the supply wasn't domestic. Right? When your one buyer backs out, what do? You want pity. right? You want pity, but at the same point, you knew that this was coming. 82%. 82% of the farming population voted for Donald Trump. They voted for the trade wars. And you want us to feel bad. You want us to bail you out? No, we shouldn't bail you out, right? Your farm should be foreclosed on. It should get sold off to J.D. Vance or one of your political gods. I don't know. But it shouldn't be the American people who are coming to bail you out now, right? We all knew that this was coming. We were all saying that this is coming. And the worst part about this is they're going to get a bailout. They're going to. And the farmers are happy about it. And they say that they deserve it. They're like, well, at least we're getting some of that nice tariff money, right, that the other countries are paying for. They're not. It's the American people who've been paying that. All the money that the government has made off the tariffs have came out of the paychecks of American people. It's just another income tax. It's just another sales tax. That's all it is. And it's going to the biggest welfare queens in our country. And those welfare queens, man, are they ungrateful and ignorant. And it's a shame. We hope it goes under. Listen, 500,000 soybean farms in America, I believe. And that means about 400,000 of them actually voted for this mess. I hope 400,000 of them do collapse. I don't care. It's soy, right? We don't need tofu. Americans need to eat less meat in general anyway, right? Let's diversify the market a little bit more. Let's actually go back to having American farms supply food for American people again, instead of just supplying soybeans for China. How about that? How about that? That's the real kind of America first, right? Instead of just growing soybeans, which we don't use in America, how about you grow a product so that everything that we buy when we go to Walmart to get our produce doesn't come from Mexico, doesn't come from Peru, doesn't come from Brazil, doesn't come from China or Canada. That should be the answer, right? Not just bail us out so we continue to grow more of a product and hope that China comes around next year and you don't have to bail us out and cause more inflation and cause more debt because we're too stupid to vote for people who actually aren't trying to rob us. Shame on these people. Soybean farmers, 5 reasons your entire business model is imploding and it's your fault. There you go. If you're still here at this point, ladies and gentlemen, like and subscribe. Think about becoming a member. Think about a donation. I don't know. This bothers me. Genuinely, this bothers me. And I understand American education is bad, and I understand that all the smart people left the rural areas, so it's just a bunch of idiots breeding with each other for the most part. So this is what you end up with. It's just an entire huge voting block of people where the median IQ is the same as my thermostat at home, right? It's a population that's just rife to be manipulated and taken advantage of because they just don't know any wiser. That's what it comes down to. It's a shame. It's the reality. And it's a shame that these people can vote at this point. It really is. Thanks for stopping by.